First, let's turn to members of the City Council that are on the list to ask questions. And the first member is Councilmember Charles Barron of Brooklyn, followed by Councilmember Letitia James of Brooklyn. Well, first, I'm sorry, Sergeant of Arms.
Yes, sir.
5 minutes, please. Start the clock.
First, I always like to preface my remarks with the failure of this education system. So I don't want to disappoint you and not indicate to you how much of a failure this system has been for the 1.1 million children. And let me say this, that they had, over the last 10 years, over $150 billion to educate 1.1 million educable children. And with this policy of co-locating and turnaround schools and high-test, standardized testing, all of the shenanigans under mayoral control has rendered us, even when you talk about the increased graduation rate from 50-some-odd% to 65%, those 65% at the end of the day, only 13% of the Black and Latino students are prepared for college. 13%. And I don't care how much of an increase that is, after 10 years, $150 billion and only 13%, that's totally unacceptable. In addition to that, if they go to one of the charter high schools, of the 6, 7, 8 charter high schools you have, only 10% are prepared for college or a career. That's the bottom line. Co-location has been nothing but chaos. If you go to some of the schools in our district, you will see that the battles around co-location are taken away from serious educational approaches to our children. And the firing, laying off of 604 school aid workers to save $32 billion of a $24.1 billion budget that has a $4.7 billion contracting budget, laid off these school aid workers. You know, these school aid workers, they were the ones that monitored the halls, the lunchrooms. They were in the classrooms with the teachers and they're crossing our children. These were workers that knew more about our children than some of the teachers did. That's how valuable they were to us, but you laid them off. So this co-location, in the context of all of that, we're hoping that the state ends mayoral control because the mayor is clueless on how to educate our children. This is about money, a $4.7 billion budget. We know that within that budget, they have like $68 million for professional services. Who? What services? Bring them folk in. Another $84 million for general services. Millions of dollars. This is about business and money, and all studies have shown this system has been a failure. As far as the co-location and putting PS 53 into that new Spring Creek building, that was a building that we wanted for 2 schools we were talking about. It was designed for high school and a middle school. And we originally wanted a K to 8 because these high school and middle schools are really a problem too. Those populations, we all talk about success. I've been into several of them. We've had problems. You were dispersing the PS 53 students all over, so you brought them now into that one building. We supported the parents who wanted that unity of their students, but you still have 3 schools in that building, and it's chaotic when you have 3 and 4 and 5 schools. The other school is PS 211, an A school that wanted that extra space to expand and continue their great work. Now you're bringing a charter in PS 211. That's going to be a major, major problem. So this policy of co-location has been a failure. They restructured the system 4 or 5 times. Any education institution knows that you need stabilization if you want to have a healthy education environment. All of this is a bunch of nonsense. We hear it all the time. The school system has been a tremendous failure. And you don't support the schools in order to get these charter schools in. You don't support the schools that are existing already. You know, you allow libraries not to be updated. You don't give them the computer labs they need. You don't give none of the assistance and say they're a failure. You give them marks. I think Tweed has been a failure. I'll let you respond to PS 211 and see what's going on with them, because we're very concerned about what's happening in that school. And I just want to overall say in my last 5 seconds, you have been a dismal failure, no matter how much you try to come here with this kind of nonsense. Failure. Failure. Dismal failure.
So I'll allow my colleague Paymont to respond on 211. Briefly on Spring Creek, Mr. Councilman, we've spoken many times on this. The only clarification I want to make is that the department has a policy that all new construction will be designed to include space for District 75 students. So you are right that this organization was designed for 2 new schools. It also was designed for a 3rd organization to include representation from the District 75 schools. So that was always part of the design, as it is for new construction across the city, which we think is an important way for us to be sure that we're serving District 75 students and families well.
So real quick on 211, you know, we've had a lot of conversations with the principal there and the local community.
Just introduce yourself for the record, please.
I'm sorry, my name is Paymont Rohanafard. I'm with the Office of Portfolio Management. I work with Mark. So IS 211 isn't a school. It has been successful over the years. The challenge with expanding that school into the space that you noted is that it is a very large school. So it currently serves approximately 800 students, and if it were to expand, 1, it wouldn't be able to fit in the building. And 2, we did the space analysis and it would not be able to expand in the building. The only way it could expand is that if you shrunk the size of the middle school. So if you truncated some of the sections and then allowed it to expand. But we also know that in this part of Brooklyn, there's a desperate need for high-quality middle school seats, and this school is providing it. So our thinking, you know, we heard other folks concur with us on this. We don't want to sacrifice the number of high-quality middle school seats in order to allow it to expand. So, you know, again, it's a large school, approximately 800 students, and if you were to expand it, it would be well over 2,000 students, which is beyond the capacity of the building.
Mr. Chairman, just to make a point of information, just a clarification. This is not true. We know the principals, the teachers. We have an expansion plan that will fit in the school. You don't want to do it because you have some other ideas. You'll get arrogant and tell us what we need for our neighborhoods, no matter what the facts bear out. You make up stuff. We have a plan. 211 can expand without having 2,000 students. We have a plan. We're talking with the local senator, Senator Sampson's office and my office, and there is a plan where we can work out and make it happen. Y'all just throw numbers out there and do what you want to do because you have the power to do it. That's why we need to end mayoral control.
Have you looked at the plan that Councilmember Barron has made reference to that was, as he indicated, put together by leaders of the community, parents, and maybe the principal or other people? Have you looked at that plan?
So we've had a number of conversations with the school leadership team and obviously with the principal, and we've shared ideas back and forth. So we'd be happy to again show you the numbers and why we think that there are real physical constraints here to do what you're saying, and perhaps we can continue to have that conversation, you know, offline to hear it. But you know, we have heard a lot of ideas from the SLT, and I do want to make that clear.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Do you want to finish what you were saying, please? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't, the plan that he's referencing, I assume, is what we heard from the school leadership team. So we did hear that from them, and we did go back and forth, and we made clear that the school would have to lose middle school seats in order to expand in the building. There are not enough seats in the building, not enough rooms in the building for it to expand at its current size.
It's not true.
I think that there's, as the council member said, he said that's not true, so there's disagreement.
We have to follow up with the councilman.
Yeah, there's disagreement there as far as the direction, I guess.
I mentioned in my testimony there are times when we meet and discuss and agree, and that's actually the vast majority of times, Mr. Chairman. I think this is one where we're going to meet and discuss, and as we have, we might wind up disagreeing, but let's be sure. Let's be sure we're talking about the same plans and the same numbers, and we're happy to do that with the councilman and his colleagues.
Thank you. Councilmember Letitia James, followed by Councilmember Jamani Williams. It seems like Brooklyn has lined up 1, 2, 3. That's how you do it? Okay.
So thank you, Mr. Steinberg, and I'm sure you know that I'm going to talk about 117, but let me just preface my remarks by saying the following. In your statement, you said co-location is a fact of life in New York City and is a key characteristic of our city's organizational plan. I would argue that co-location should only be a fact of life when a school is underutilized. And I do not see co-locations as a fact of life. In fact, I would better describe it as cramming schools into one building. It is not co-location. It should not be described as co-location, but in fact the proper term is cramming. And let me specifically get to the school in my district, which I categorically disagree with putting a 5th school, not a 2nd school, not a 3rd school, not a 4th school, but a 5th school, a 2nd transfer school into a building which unfortunately has had its fair share of gang-affiliated problems. And I believe, just as on principle, that co-locations of schools often pits parents against parents, puts elected officials in the middle of parents. It worsens overcrowding and has had a negative impact on student life in the co-located schools. But let me give you some facts with regards to 300 Willoughby in Brooklyn, the school often known as 117. As most of you know, last year I had a rally in front of 117 because we had gangs that entered 117 and assaulted the school safety officers. That was with 4 schools. And now you want to add a 5th school in a building where they already have a transfer school. The threat of violence in and around the campus will negatively impact attendance, achievement, academic achievement, recruitment, and current student retention. Each school, believe it or not, has its fair share of gang-affiliated students because of its close proximity to a number of other public housings in and around the borough of Brooklyn, unfortunately. The building of 117 is a middle school building and is not adequately built or configured for 800 high school students and 250 middle school students. Let me say that again. 800 high school students and 250 middle school students. This building was not configured for that. Just the physical and space, from a physical and space standpoint, adding another high school creates a powder keg, not only in the school, but in the surrounding community. And it will be bursting at the seams and ripe for incident, as we have seen time and time again. Through my office and through the local precinct, with the help of the 88th and the 79th precinct, we created safe corridors in that neighborhood. And now you want to add a 2nd transfer school in that building, a 5th building, in a building which was not suitably or configured for high school students and or middle school students together. In addition, the existing school, the District 75 school, 369, 99% of the students have emotional behavior problems. You want to add that with another transfer school in a building. 99% of the children have been diagnosed, not my opinion, but diagnosed as having emotional behavior disorder. So there's a very real concern about mixing more high school age students having a problem of emotional and behavior issues in an existing building where we've had a history of violence already, which has been documented. The placement of a 5th school creates a domino effect of potential instability that will only impede the progress that we have made and the investment that I have made to this building along with the Brooklyn Borough President, Marty Markowitz. For every school that exists in that building, it will limit classroom usage. It will obviously have a significant impact on the special education students that are there now and children with special needs, and access to important shared spaces such as libraries and gyms and classrooms, which are critical to their success. And lastly, let me say the common spaces, the gym, the cafeteria, the auditorium, the library. We now have students that occupy the lunchroom at 10:30 to 1:45. 369, again, the transfer school that currently exists. What we are trying to do is try to get the kids mainstreamed. And unfortunately, with this 5th school that you would like to place into this building, you are preventing these children from becoming mainstreamed or being mainstreamed back into the general population. And what we would like to do is something which is less restrictive. But by adding more children with emotional problems into a building, again with problems, it's going to be a major problem. And lastly, there was one school in that building, Mr. Chair, my last comment, is that we've had 4 principals in 3 years. And we're finally getting stability in that one school. That's 596. We're finally getting stability. And now you want to just add another 5th school. This is not co-location. This is cramming. And I categorically oppose it. I've worked with you in the past. I've supported you on co-locations in other situations. On this, Mr. Steinberg, it's not in the best interest of the children. It's not in the best interest of the community that I represent. It's not in the best interest of pedagogical instruction. It's just going to hurt the 4 existing schools where we have made great progress. You know I've put a lot of capital dollars in this building, and you know that I am going to oppose this with every fiber of my being, and that includes, but is not limited to, a lawsuit. I've already hired some high-powered attorneys, and we plan on seeing you in court.
Thank you. So I guess